We spoke earlier with former UN ambassador and presidential hopeful Nikki Haley from Des Moines, Iowa, where she was campaigning yesterday. And we began by asking her whether the former president should face prosecution over mishandling of classified documents.
If these accusations are true, it's incredibly dangerous to our national security. But again, this is coming down from a Department of Justice that, frankly, the American people don't trust.
Two other defendants named in this indictment, Carlos de Oliveira and Trump body man Walt Nauta, were allegedly instructed to delete security camera footage. And the details in this indictment are very specific. It says just a day after Trump received the subpoena requesting the video, they went to the basement and looked at the security cameras. 2 days later, de Oliveira took aside a fourth employee, went through a basement tunnel to a small room, and asked about how many days the server retained footage from those surveillance cameras. He then told another employee the boss wanted the server deleted. Does that sound kosher to you?
No, I mean, none of that sounds good. The same way it didn't sound good when Hillary erased her emails. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're Hillary or if you're Trump. You shouldn't be erasing anything unless you have something to hide. But everybody needs to be treated the same way. And that's what the American people are frustrated about. It's not that they don't want people held accountable. They just want everyone to be treated fairly. And right now, they don't trust the Department of Justice.
Do you trust the Department of Justice yourself?
If I become president, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure we clean up we'll clean it up from the top and all of senior management. They have weaponized and put politics in the Department of Justice over years.
You've said in the past, though, you would be inclined to pardon Donald Trump. That assumes he'll be convicted. That assumes he had something to hide here. Has your position changed? Would you still pardon him?
Well, what I've said is if he is found guilty, that is certainly showing that it was dangerous to our national security. But I'll take you back to Nixon and Ford. I mean, I think that one of the things we have to look at is not what's in the best interest of, the president, but what's in the best interest of the country. We have to move forward. We've got to quit living in the past. And I don't want there to be all of this division over the fact that we have a president serving years in jail over a documents trial. I want all of this to go away. It's why we have to have a new generational leader. It's why we need to move forward. We can't keep living with indictments and court cases and vengeance of the past. We've got to start going forward. American people are not talking about these indictments.
You have said in the past that you would support Donald Trump if he wins the nomination, but he can't win a general election. Do you think then that he should drop out?
While I think he was the right president at the right time, earlier, and why I think his policies were good, I don't think he's the right president at the right time going forward. I think we've got to move forward. We can't have a general election where we are handing it over to Kamala Harris because we're dealing with indictments and court cases and legal issues of President Trump.
So it would help you get your message out and Republicans get their message out if he drops out. Is that what you're saying?
Well, none of us want to be talking about indictments. Yeah. I don't even know if it's the third, fourth, or fifth indictment right now. But what I can tell you is it's a distraction. And frankly, the media is talking about it nonstop. But when I do these town halls, the American public is not talking to me about that.
You've said sanctions on China are not working, and that as president, you would push Congress to revoke permanent normal trade relations until the flow of fentanyl ends. Our two economies are incredibly intertwined. How do you hit China without having blowback here at home?
That's the exact response that the Europeans would have told you about Russia. And look at where that got them. That got them to where they're right on the border of a Ukrainian-Russian war. What we have to understand is China
is the second most powerful
a massive
economy in the world.
And China is also our #1 biggest national security threat. All you have to do is look at the infiltration they're doing in our country. They're doing nuclear, they're doing artificial intelligence, they're doing cyber. We need to deal with China as the threat that they are. The way I would deal with it is, #1, we wouldn't allow them to buy U.S. soil. We would take the land that they've bought back from them. We would go and say, no more are we selling any sort of sensitive technologies that allow them to build up their military and threaten the U.S. We would stop that. We would tell our universities, you either take Chinese money or American money, but the days of taking both are over, and we get that Chinese infiltration out. And when it comes to fentanyl, the #1 cause of death for adults 18 to 49, Margaret, is fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing. So what I would do is say to China, we will end all normal trade relations with you until you stop killing Americans.
So you would kick out the Chinese manufacturers who've invested in the state of South Carolina?
What I would say to the Chinese manufacturers is I would say, look, we're going to make sure we know exactly what you're doing. We only took less than 2%, but I wish the administration had told the governors what was going on. What we need to do is make sure there's no sensitive technology being stolen.
You have been speaking a fair amount about President Biden's seventh grandchild, who you've said he should acknowledge. On Friday, he did in a statement saying it's a personal matter, not a political one. Do you accept that request for privacy, given that there is a 4-year-old child involved?
When I was talking about the grandchildren, what I was saying is that we need to have term limits in Congress, and we need to have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75. And I don't say that to be disrespectful. When you go and you look at Biden and you ask him what country he was in the week before and he can't say it, when you go and ask him how many grandchildren he has and he doesn't know, when you go and see him falling asleep with leaders, that's concerning. And I know when I was at the United Nations, leaders watch the health status of other leaders. They are watching Biden right now. You see what happened with McConnell.
Yeah.
You see what happened with Feinstein.
Okay, so I want to follow up on that, but I think, are you saying there that you believe the privacy of this child should be dealt with as a non-political matter?
I haven't paid attention to what he said in terms of his interview. But of course, when it comes to family, we always want to keep that private. That's fine. But when you go and you talk about family values and you talk about all of that, it's odd that he wouldn't acknowledge one of his grandchildren.
You have just criticized Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, who's 81 and had some issues in front of a camera this week where he seemed to freeze a bit. Are you confident in his ability to lead, because he says he's going to serve out his term?
I think Mitch McConnell did an amazing job when it comes to our judiciary, when we look at the judges, when we look at the Supreme Court. He's been a great leader. But I do think that this is one, we've got to stop electing people because they look good in a picture or they hold a baby well. We've got to stop electing people because we like them and they've been there a long time. That's actually the problem. You need to have term limits because we need new ideas, new solutions. We've got to have a new generation. I hit Republicans and Democrats. We are $32 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. I would love to say Biden did that to us, but Republicans did that to us too. Republicans in the 24 budget asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. Who are the big spenders there? What I am saying about Mitch McConnell, Dianne Feinstein, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, all of them, know when to walk away. Know when to walk away. We have huge issues that need new solutions. We need new generational leaders. We appreciate your service. We appreciate what you've done. But this is why we will fight for term limits. We've got to get it done in America.
Donald Trump is 77 years old. Would he pass that mental acuity test?
I don't know. I say everybody should take it. I'm willing to take it. I think everybody else should take it.
You didn't list his name when you listed all those older Washington lawmakers.
That goes for all of them. You can look across D.C. They're all that. Of course I'm talking about Trump. I've said that all throughout this campaign, that it is time for us to have a new generation. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. Yeah. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. We've got to start going with a new generation so that we can do that.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask you your thoughts on Governor Ron DeSantis. He signed that law changing curriculums in the state of Florida with new standards. As you know, a lot of scrutiny about how slavery would be taught. Do you think he has overstepped by attacking some of the black Republicans in Congress who have said they personally take issue with what he is doing and the language that he is defending?
Well, I haven't read the actual curriculum that he proposed in Florida, but what I can say is it's the 21st century. And I think we can all agree that there were no positives that came out of slavery. And I think everybody can and should agree on that.
Has he overstepped?
Well, I mean, I think he needs to go and talk with the Republicans and Democrats that have issues with this. I mean, he just should come out and say no positives came out of slavery. I think that's important to say, and I think that's what these Republicans and Democrats have asked him to say. We'll see what he does.
Thank you for your time today, Ambassador Nikki Haley.
Thanks. Go to NikkiHaley.com and join us.